Hello, and good evening, everyone. My name's Richard Micky, the brand ambassador with Mackmyra. Joining me is my colleague Micky Plummer. Hello, Micky.
Hello, Rich. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us for this Mackmyra Swedish whiskey tasting. I hope everyone's got their packs in order, all lined up and ready to go. Before we begin, we'll talk a little bit about how this is all going to work, especially important for the people who may not have attended any virtual tastings before. We'll start off with some brief announcements. Moving to an introduction, a sort of overview of the history of Mackmyra, just give everyone a sort of sense of where we're from, and some brief explanation, at least for the time being, about how we go about what we go about. We'll keep that part quite short so we can get into the drams and then expand on each of those points with the whiskies that we get to. So as to the whiskies, Mick, what will the running order be? What's the lineup going to be?
So this evening, guys, first out of the distillery, or first out of the stables, shall we say, will be Brooks Whisky, followed hot on the heels by Mack. Then the third whiskey will be Svensk. Then we'll go on to Jaktlycka, and then we will finish up on Svensk Rök.
Perfect. That's it. So Brooks Whisky, first one up. We'll go through each of them. Each dram, we'll discuss them one by one. We'll talk about the tasting notes that Mick and I find. Would encourage anyone drinking along at home that's able to, or have the keyboard next to them to comment. Let us know what you might be finding, and whether or not you're enjoying drams as we go along. I'd suggest having a glass of water on hand, just to cleanse the palate between drams, and Micky there modelling the jug and pipettes. If anyone's got a pipette, please grab one just for a drop or two of water to your taste, or a straw if you don't have a pipette to hand. The old finger over the top technique will do just fine, does the same job.
Or even
bottles, whatever way you can sort of some sort of moderate life hack for adding a drop or two of water to one's whiskey. But and that's it. Please do drink responsibly. We've got 50ml 5cl bottles that have been sent out. You don't have to drink them in full before we move to the next dram, of course. I would encourage, in fact, as Mick would probably do the same, to pour a good portion out and leave a little bit perhaps to come and revisit towards the end or as we go, just so you can compare whiskies as we go through the course of this tasting. That's probably it for the how things work and what we're going to do. As to announcements, any things that Mackmyra have got coming up or we've got in the pipeline, Mick, over to you.
Yeah, sure, guys. So we're quite busy on our social media channels over the next couple of weeks. With that, this Friday coming, we're back to the Mackmyra Inn again with our good friend Jimmy Morrison, the global brand ambassador for the Glen Turret. The week after that, we're back in the inn again. So every Friday, guys, going forward until we're told to stop. Basically, every Friday we shall be at the Mackmyra Inn with a different guest every week. Hopefully, as long as people don't get tired of us, etc. But so far, so good, Rich. We've done all right there. But as far as announcement goes, guys, 2019's spring-summer release, the Appleblom, which was the Calvados cask finish whiskey, is no longer available from ourselves at mackmyra.co.uk or from our European outlet either. There might be a couple out in the wild in some of our retailers, some of our good friends in the shops up and down the country. There might potentially be some out there, but we're coming up for, that would be nearly 2 years now it's been out in the wild. Don't if you find a bottle, let me know, because I've only got a small bit of my tasting bottle left.
So have I, just about this much. I'm nursing it at the moment.
Let me and Rich know before you buy it, because get on board, get stuck in, and get yourselves a bottle. It truly is a fantastic dram. We have a new seasonal coming up. All will be revealed in the following weeks, guys. So around about March-ish, we always announce a new spring-summer seasonal. So why change the habit of a lifetime? We'll do the same again this year, and it promised to be really very good. But we always promise that. You know what I mean? And so far,
deliver.
complained about we've lived up to the hype, Rich, so far, I think, anyway. And obviously we were both fans of Mackmyra before we joined the ranks of Mackmyra, as it were, and that's what attracted us to the job. But no, guys, honestly, so our 2 season releases a year are great, but we'll go on to them a little bit later on. And as a wee tease, guys, and these don't happen very often, we've actually got a single cask, a 200 litre single cask bottling. Not us personally, but somebody that we know as is going to be releasing a 200 litre single cask 12-year-old Mackmyra before the end of February. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight, guys, we've got the Valentine's show on the 10th.
Yeah, don't forget Valentine's, mate. I think in all of our households, something that needs to be. Don't miss that one out.
So with that, guys, tonight we're doing our core range with the Jaktlycka. This pack is our core range with one of our moments, the Moment Prestige, which was matured wholly in first, second, and third fill wine casks that later become champagne casks. There she is, a beautiful bottle as well, and a lovely, lovely whiskey. So that's the tasting pack for the Valentine's show. And this tonight, guys, so you're not all missing out on everything great and good. Myself and Rich will, as we go through the show, we're going to be asking 3 questions, and we'll be doing a giveaway. What we'll be giving away will be a bar blade, something to swing on your finger and open your bottles in a cool way with, like you see all the cool cats behind the bar doing. There you go, that's it right there. We should also be giving away a cocktail shaker. So if anybody's been inspired over the past couple of months by some of the cocktails I've mentioned, or Rich has mentioned, or Camille or Lawrence have mentioned over the past year, then you can get your own Mackmyra cocktail shaker to get those on the go. And ultimately, we're giving away probably what's a lot of people's favourite. What with us all being in lockdown and going out for walks, and with the brisk weather these days, is a cheeky wee Mackmyra hip flask. So stay tuned throughout the show, guys. Those 3 prizes will be available to be won as we progress through the show, Rich.
Yeah, perfect. I like the look of that hip flask. I think Mick and I are still trying to work out how we can get one of those sent to us.
Definitely.
So I think maybe depends who asks the question at the end, out of the 2 of us, and the other one could just jump in and answer it. And we'll do it in good faith. We won't do that.
We'll see what we can do, mate. We'll see what we can do.
So everyone that is watching from home, I mentioned earlier, please comment, let us know how you're getting on. If you've got any announcements, even if you've got a birthday shout out, or you've got something coming up you'd like us to say hello to anyone that might be watching too, please do ask us any questions. There's no silly question in this. We appreciate that lots of people that will be joining us this evening may not be incredibly experienced with whiskey. Perhaps it might have been a gift for you as well. So any questions that you do want to ask, or you feel like asking, please do. Our colleague Carl in the background, as he's doing here with a few comments here from these guys, Rab and Rich, hello. We'll pop it up on the screen for Mick and I, and we'll address it.
Looks like we've got an early starter there, Rich Bradford.
Nice.
He's just letting it breathe. Good man, Rich. Good man.
Yes, it's not Rich's first rodeo, then you can see, that's for sure. Yeah.
Would have been not.
And that's it. Yeah, but please, actually, if you let us know if this is your first tasting you've ever been on, or if this is your 100th, or if you've ever tried Mackmyra before, just to give Mick and I an idea about who we've got in the crowd this evening, and we'll sort of try and tailor our approach just to match everyone's needs. I think that's probably about it, Mick. I think people are probably itching to get into the drams, so I think we'll do a brief. I'll hand over to you to do a bit of an overview of things, and then we'll get into the Brooks whiskey.
So just before we hit the history, guys, before we get into that, just to amplify what Rich said, guys, if this is your first time or your first couple of times you've been to a whiskey tasting or to a Mackmyra whiskey tasting, if me and Rich say something and you don't quite understand it, please do ask the question. Okay, please do. No such thing as a silly question. Okay. So that would be great, and it promotes a bit more interaction as well. Good evening, Jess. How you doing, Paul? That's one of our regular riders there, Jess. So, guys, a bit of history. Where do we start? Where do we begin? So, Mackmyra village near Gävle. It's about an hour and a half to 2 hours north of Stockholm. We first started producing. So the first liquid that we produced was in 1999. So that makes us now 21 years old. It was on the 18th of December last year. We've become 21. But the idea was formed in 1998, where our 8 founding members, who were friends at university, they used to meet up every year when they left university for a skiing holiday. There they are. Well, 3 of them anyway. There's another 5 to go on with that.
There was five people were taking the picture, I think.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. Well, one person taking the picture and 3 other people just like hitting about in the snow trying to get up there.
The lighting and the sound boom, yeah.
Yeah. So the idea was formed in 1998. Where all these friends that have been meeting up for years since they left university, all actually turned up to dinner with a bottle of single malt whiskey. And it begged the question over dinner, why isn't there a Swedish single malt whiskey distillery, or just a Swedish whiskey distillery in general, really? So what with the majority of them being engineers, they put their heads together, started thinking in business planning and everything like that. And then, a year later, really just over a year later, the first drops come off our very first 100-litre still. So we set out to be quintessentially Swedish. Quintessentially is a big, long word, and I always quite enjoy saying it. But it basically means, that's what we want to achieve. We want to be bang on Swedish, really. We don't want to be bringing in ingredients and importing stuff like that, and that will become more relevant as we progress through our story throughout the tasting guides as well. So we want to use Swedish ingredients in our process, so we want to use Swedish oak, we want to use Swedish barley, Swedish water, Swedish yeast, because, barley, yeast and water is essentially, the only 3 ingredients that go into making whiskey. Do you know what I mean? There's some other influences, obviously, and we'll touch upon them as we go through the tasting guides. But yeah, taking those basic 3 ingredients to make what you're going to be tasting tonight are all Swedish. No way of relying that. It's all very close to the distillery. So with that as well, it's quite innovative. Yeah, but it's also, we want to make it sustainable. And these guys, these are just highlight points that we're going to cover as we go through the drams and cover the story. So we started off in a shed, basically in one of the founders' back gardens. We then progressed on only 2.5 years later to our first big boy distillery at the Brooks Distillery, and then we moved on to our current distillery, which is the Gravity Distillery in the Mackmyra Whisky Village. We've got 5 warehouses. I think 4 of them are in Sweden and 1 in Germany. So we've got quite the range as well. But our main one is the Bodas Mine, which we will talk about later on again as well. And they cover, like I said, islands, mountains, and down in a mine. We've got three bottlings, as it were, in general, that you'll see a lot of. That's our core range, which we're tasting this evening. We've got a seasonal range, which we're tasting one of this evening in the Jaktlycka. And we've got our moments range, which is like our super premium range, And you'll always see that. That's the things that we always do. We've got things happening outside of that with collaboration bottlings and 30-litre single cask bottlings, all that type of stuff. You'll see these things out there. But that's the 3 main products that we have, is our core, our seasonal, and our moments. They're all put together by a fantastic woman, a very knowledgeable woman called Angela Dorazio. She's our master blender, or to give her an official Mackmyra title, there she is, lovely woman. To give her an official Mackmyra title, she's our chief nosing officer. She actually got inducted into the Whisky Hall of Fame back in 2019. And that was just absolutely fantastic. And for her dedication, not just to Mackmyra, but other things outside of whiskey as well, but mainly for the things that she's done with Mackmyra, and that was just such a thing to celebrate for us and for Angela, obviously, but no, for us to have her as our CNO or our master blender, if you want to put it that way, it's such an honour, quite frankly, and we're really glad to have her. But a couple of things that I've touched upon there, guys. We'll go into more detail as we're sat enjoying a dram. So with that, Rich, should we get on with dram number 1?
I think, yeah. We'll get into the Brooks whiskey. I'm sure some people have it in their glass already. Hopefully, have been enjoying those. Please do let us know in the comments. I'll just pour myself on. It's probably a good place to start.
Rich, quick one. Before we hit it, and that's my fault, guys. I left a vital thing out. What does Mackmyra mean?
Aha.
Loads of people will ask, what does Mackmyra mean? You want to take it or shall I take it?
Let's go. Well, we'll share it. I'll give you a break for a moment because you've gone through all of the history there in detail. So Mackmyra, as Micky said, it is an actual place. It's situated not far from Gävle, an hour and a half or so north of Stockholm. It's not just a distillery trying to give ourselves a Scottish sounding name and try and sort of slide or sneak into the market in that way. It is an actual place. A very old name, and sort of quite an old translation for it. So Mackmyra, you split the two, split it in half. Sorry, so Mack and Myra. I'll start with the end. I'll start with Myra. Myra basically means sort of wetlands, like a bog or a swamp, and Mack translates loosely into a small sort of flying nibbly insect, and to me that means midge, and I think to most people that probably would be as well, midge mosquito. So if you're Swedish and looking at Mackmyra name, and you're looking at an older translation but the original of the location, midge bog or midge swamp, which always tickles me to talk about,
because we say Mackmyra and it sounds lovely, it trips off the tongue beautifully. I always hate doing this, Rich. I mean, yeah, but it actually means like ridgy swamp. I
think there's nothing to hide in there for me. I think it's charming. Yeah, I think it's charming. But yeah, that's it. But that's a good point to bring up there. So Brooks Whisky. Brooks Whisky everyone's got in their glass now, I'm sure. 41.4% ABV. For us, and this is, well, for me and Mick, I know we agree quite often on sort of notes for this one, especially what we can't find that some people do as well. Yeah. But yeah, light, bright, sort of fruity, gently spiced, and we often refer to as breakfast friendly. Sort of thing that we wouldn't necessarily encourage people to start their day with it. But if you had a special day or a big day out, or you've had some good reason for it, then I think it's the sort of thing you probably could have in the morning, and it wouldn't give you too many hairs on your chest. But yeah, so the note that Mick and I can't find that often people do, I might actually leave just to see if it trickles in, perhaps.
Yeah, let's see if anybody comes up with it. Let's see if anybody comes up with it.
So what the reason we put this one at the beginning of the lineup is the profile wise, when you're picking a lineup for whiskey, trying to think about the softest perhaps profile, and then lead in to the heavier ones and the big hitters, you might call them, and the smoky ones at the end. But also it helps us link in a bit more of the sort of background of Mackmyra as well, talking a bit more detail about that. But notes wise, for me, our spirit character, if you ever tried our new make spirit, which is whiskey as it first comes off the still, completely colourless before it goes into a cask for maturing for 3 years minimum, which a whiskey needs to be. Our spirit character that you should find throughout the large part of our range, or a large part of it, will be orchard fruits, fruits, some berries perhaps, and some warm, often gentle, but sometimes, quite spicy spices. So when you think Mackmyra, our spirit character, a theme that you should find or often find throughout would be sort of fruity and spicy. I've just seen this note, from
that's quite interesting.
From Stuart. Yeah, caramel. I think we hear caramel quite often. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys in particular find caramel on the next one as well, for sure. But apples, I think Stuart said apples. Looking back up in there now, apples, orchard fruits, apples. That's for sure. I think Apple Bloom that Micky mentioned earlier was our Calvados cask whiskey. It was sort of Apple Boom, everyone called it.
Yeah,
just turned apples up to 11.
I love that nickname, Rich. I love that nickname for that because it was so apt.
So sweet sherbet, I think that's a great one as well. And I will say, anyone that's joined us before, Micky and I, we usually encourage people to sort of remind anyone that might need reminding of it, or to help people that might be in the early stages of their whiskey journey. Any note that you do find, or you think if you know something, or you taste something and you think that there's a particular note that you can put a word to, you're absolutely right. There's no wrong answers. It's so subjective.
Yes.
There will be a theme, and you will find, lots of people will find similar things in there. But if you can find something and you haven't seen anyone else comment, throw it in. Honestly, throw it in and let us know, because if you can find it in there, it means it exists, because it just means you're able to pick up on it, and someone else perhaps may not be. That's it. What about you, Mick? Sort of profile wise for you, what's your
So if you're a regular listener, then I'm not a regular watcher. I thought I did the podcast again, but no. If you're a regular watcher, I'm not a massive one for tasting notes, because I'm rubbish at them, quite frankly. When I smell the whiskey, do I want to drink it? When I taste the whiskey, do I want to drink some more of it? And this ticks both those boxes, obviously. But one of the main things that does stick out for me that I do remember is foam bananas. One day, like 5p or probably 10p or probably about 3.5 quid. In sweets, in the news agents used to get on the counter or whatever. But the foam bananas would be about so big. That's what that reminds me of. So you got that banana flavour going on, but there's also that slight, very, very slight alcohol flavour. That's not quite like a pure banana flavour. Do you know what I mean?
It's like a confectionery sort of banana. Because I get that foam banana all the time. And I think Hamish said banana just as you started talking about that in the comments as well. So, banana for sure. Always get that.
I mean, and that just jumps out for me on this one. Do you know what I mean? There are a couple of other bits and pieces going on. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, and whatever you think you taste and you smell is what you taste and you smell, because it's only you that can relate it to your life experience and what you've tasted and smells. You know what I mean? Rich, brilliant.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I agree.
And that's the main thing. That is really the main thing when it comes to tasting whiskey. Yes, you can go down the convoluted. It tastes like I don't know, massively long words over massively long sentences, but it doesn't matter. Chinese banana fritters, fantastic. Brilliant.
I don't know what Chinese banana fritter is, so I couldn't argue with that. Anyway,
exactly.
I wanted
to. So I can go, I know what he's on about. Do you know what I mean?
Tasting notes, Nick. Yeah. Sorry, so I was only saying, just to sort of go off of what you were saying there, and then Rich agreeing with you. If you were to look at my sort of Excel spreadsheet I've got for all the little samples I get from tastings that I attend or that we exchange with friends in the post, a lot of my notes, sometimes it has specific things in there. Quite often it just says, "Oh, that was really good," or like, "I like that one more than I did, the 1998 version of it," or something.
Exactly.
There's things in there for me, so when I go back and read it, I can remember the experience I had with it, rather than just have nothing there at all. Because I think that you have to put raspberry, you have to put old boot leather, you have to put ducted, dusty bookshelf, all these things that you see. These very probably right. If people find it, you find it. But I'm not an expert with that.
What about this as a tasting note, right? And I've read this as an actual tasting note, right? I'm not going to give away names or anything like that, so don't inquire me for them. But like licking an old leather wingback chair in a dusty library.
I can have a guess where that was.
Who does that though? Who does that? Who picks leather wingback chairs in old libraries? Look, if it's your thing, cool. Not a problem. I couldn't relate it as that because I've never done that.
No, but I mean, if somebody has, they have, Nick. So I mean, like we said earlier, if they think that's in there, it's there. I can have a guess at which company might have had that. I think I've got some of their bottles behind me. But we'll come back to the Brooks whiskey. So now that we've had a few tasting notes come in, I'll give everyone the rundown of the casks that were used to go into this. The casks that we used and sort of mixed together before releasing as our whiskey here. So. Quite often with us and with Angela, you'll find a relatively complicated, what we call a cask recipe. So, the different types of previous contents and sizes of casks and things that have gone in. So, with this, 200 litre first fill ex-bourbon casks have made up the majority of this. We've also used some 100 litre first fill Swedish oak casks. Some 100 litre first fill sherry casks, and then some 200 litre ex-bourbon casks again. But whereas in the first set of casks that I've mentioned are what we call our elegant recipe, which is our unsmoked, unpeated, basically new make spirit that then goes on to make the whiskey. With these this other batch of 200 litre bourbon casks, we fill those with what we call our smoke tail recipe, which is our unpeated new make, or unpeated barley, goes into the whiskey making process. But instead of cleaning out all of our equipment between doing a peated or a smoky run and an unpeated run, we leave it. So you leave some of that sort of that peat residue, some of the smoky residue on the inside of our stills, which means that when we put our unpeated stuff in, it just picks up some of that influence along the way. It comes out at the end. Angela marks, I think it's probably the first, 1, 2, and 3 runs, the first one being more smoked. Yeah. And so Angela will then put them into casks at the end, mark them with a big X to say smoke tail, and that helps her in the blending process. And just to digress very quickly, blending, every distillery, single malt distilleries or people that produce single malt, have somebody called a master blender, or a group that own a few distilleries will have one. It doesn't mean it's a blended whiskey. Blended whiskey being a whiskey in a bottle that's from 2 or more distilleries have been put together.
Multiple,
But yeah, so a master blender, just because it's often, I think, quite can be quite a confusing term for people that you hear blender and you think that all of a sudden it's a blended whiskey, but in fact it's not. You've just got someone in the background who creates the whiskies, as Micky mentioned earlier, and decides upon the types of casks that will be put together. She'll sit in a lab with a series of samples that she's drawn from casks and mix them together in different quantities, working out what the best whiskey to come out would be. And she uses those smoke tail recipes, smoke tail casks. I haven't heard, I'm unaware at least, of anyone else that does that, Mick. I don't know if you've come across it.
Everybody else I know of, Rich, and that I know of, I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But everybody that I know of, after they do a peated run, tends to do a big full scrub down of their systems,
right? Yeah,
stills, etc., to get rid of that effect before they go on to their non-peated runs.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it, and it just gives. If you imagine a master blender being, an artist with a palette full of colours, it just means that by doing this and having that other sort of subtle smoke rather than something that's heavily smoked, it means she's just got another few colours on the palette that she can select from when trying to create her. Let's call them masterpieces. I don't know if we're being overly generous. I think it's probably on point if you ask me, but creates her pieces of art, which all of these whiskies would be. So I'll give everyone just a bit of a history before, and let everyone sort of sit and enjoy this whiskey, and then not rush at all into the second. So I'll give you a bit of a background into the Brooks Distillery. Obviously, this is the Brooks whiskey. So the Brooks Distillery was our first. I think Mick called it earlier our first big boy distillery. So started off in '99 in a series of sheds of the founders. Go on, Mick.
Our first distillery proper.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, so the first conventional looking distillery, the sort of thing you'd expect to see. So we started producing in '99. We used a tiny little 100 litre still while we were still working out of our founders' gardens. We took a 30 litre cut from that still, so 100 litres go in. You heat it up. It all not steams, but what's the word for steam that's not water, Mick? I've lost it.
Evaporates, Rich.
Evaporates. Thank you. So yeah, so you build that evaporation go up of your soon to be whiskey inside, but you only take a portion of that when it condenses at the other end. So we would take a 30 litre cut, a heart cut from it. So we ended up having to fill our 200 litre cask, with 6 different distillation runs. So the founders thought, right, after a short time, we'll start using 30 litre casks, because we created our own 30 litre casks in order to just make things a bit more efficient and get things maturing and on their way. But that still that we saw a picture of there was we welded together, or Mick and I didn't do it. The founders welded it. Yeah, they welded it together themselves. They built it themselves. Micky said they're engineers. They hadn't been distillers or brewers or anything before, but they had a bit of wherewithal, bit of nous about them, and put that together themselves. So we did just see a quick picture there. We might have back up of some 30 litre casks sitting and maturing away in our warehouse. There we go. So you can see them there. So our reserve cask program, we sell about probably about 1,000 or 1,100 a year of these casks now to private owners and clubs and shops and things. If anyone's interested in that, let us know, as we go. But yeah, 2002, we moved into the Brooks distillery, our first proper distillery. And we moved up from having a 100-litre still where you can't produce a great deal of stuff to 2 big Forsyth stills. Anyone that's joining us this evening that's has been into whiskey for some time and some of the technical side of it and or done any tours will undoubtedly have heard of Forsyth. So the foremost, sort of copper workers and still makers, really, in the world probably, but certainly in the whiskey industry. 10,000 litre wash still, which is the first one where the first bit of liquid goes in, and then our 7,000 litre spirit still, which is where you end up with your whiskey at the end. I saw that comment.
Sorry, Rich. It makes me laugh. Right? Cole always puts these comments up for us at the most inappropriate times.
Just the most distracting moments, yeah.
Foot flow, brilliant, lovely, and then he whacks a comment like that. So, Charles, if you want some more for breakfast, just get yourself a bottle, my man. Do you know what I mean?
Just. But yeah, so we've got 2 big Forsyth stills, and we're able to then start producing whiskey on a much larger scale. Start exporting it into different countries eventually, and sort of start making ourselves known on the world stage and outside of Sweden because of this new distillery and the stills that we had. And we stayed in the Brooks distillery from 2002 until 2011, 2012, when we moved into our Gravity distillery that Mick referenced earlier, which is our, I would dare say our sort of forever home, if you will. So we can see it there, 35 meters tall, 7 stories up. We take all of the barley on the back. There's 2 big green silos filled with, I think, about 40 tons of barley in each, unpeated in one, peated in the other. It goes up to the 6th floor, 7th floor being our restaurant bar area. You can see a big balcony at the top. Goes up to floor number 6, and then each floor on the way down is the next stage of the production process. Hence the name Gravity Distillery. And moving in there, we used, I think, from in the first year, 45% less energy in our production process in that distillery compared to the Brooks distillery, just for utilizing gravity from one floor to the next. In addition to that, it is absolutely rammed full of all sorts of fantastic technology for capturing heat from various parts of the production process and then recycling that heat to then go into warm other parts of it, or to heat the offices and things like that as well. So we've got our own little power plant at the back with all sorts of stuff. I'll let Mick talk about that when we get to the Mac. We got carried away there. I just love talking about the Gravity Distillery, Mick. I'm stealing parts of your dram when we get there. I'm sure you'll be okay. I'll just laugh at some point and distract you, and that'll buy some time. But that's it. So yeah, and just about all of the whiskey that we're drinking tonight would have been distilled at the Brooks distillery. So I'll raise a glass to that, say skull, to the Brooks distillery. It's been mothballed. I'll have a little sip. Ooh. It was mothballed when we moved into the Gravity distillery and then reopened in 2017, where we produce our gin at the moment. We've got 2 gins that we have there, and other things that might be in the pipeline, other bits that we experiment with. So it's now been renamed our lab distillery. So we'll be sort of experimenting there with various things.
R&D distillery.
That's it.
Research and development distillery, basically.
That's it. Perfect. So that's it. I think that's enough of a monologue from me. We'll see if we've got any comments that we can have a look at, or let us know. Is anyone enjoying this? Has anyone tried it before? Has anyone not tried it before? Thinks it's good? Anyone that doesn't like it, let us know, and we might be able to point you in the direction of something else in the range that you might prefer. But fire away and let us know. But I think that might be a good time, Mick, to segue perhaps into the Mac.
No, let's talk about a few different drinking options for the Brooks first before we get over to Mac.
We talk about your freezer.
Not just my freezer, but everybody else's freezer as well, Rich.
Okay, yeah, go on, take it away.
So guys, a good thing I like to do with Brooks is what I normally when I do a private tasting and we do Brooks, what I tend to tell people at the very beginning is take half of your 50 cl sample, put pop it into your glass, obviously, and just let it sit, and take the other half that's still in the bottle and pop it into your freezer, and we'll get back to it later. If you guys have managed to be able to save some, do that. If you're not a problem. When you buy a bottle, though, maybe keep your sample bottle, fill it up. Honestly, you'll not be disappointed. When a spirit such as Brooks is frozen, obviously it will never freeze because it's not gold, and gold doesn't freeze. But it does become a lot more viscous, a lot thicker. So it will change the mouthfeel very, very considerably. But what it won't do is if you put a couple of lumps of ice into your dram, it won't dilute it uncontrollably. But it will take it down to a quite nice temperature. But what freezing it does is it does freeze up some of the flavour compounds. So you're not going to get a big flavour burst to start off with. But what you're going to get is a bit more of a mouthfeel from it. I can't explain it until you do it, guys. Honestly, I do highly recommend it. It's not for everybody. You know, we did this just before Christmas on a tasting, and somebody said that they weren't a big fan. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I do suggest just giving it a try.
Experiment.
Yeah, we dram in a sample bowl, bank in the freezer for an hour or two. Bring it back out, try it, give it a go.
I think I agree with Michael. Let's move on to the Mac. But
Yes.
but that is interesting.
Mac.
The principle of what Micky's saying, I'd encourage anyone to drink it however you like. Basically, you know, add a bit of water in, put whiskey in a cocktail, pop it in the freezer, see what you can do with the texture, as Micky was saying. I mean, there's a lot of different options you can do. It's not just one way to drink whiskey. The only way to drink it is the way you want to drink
It's your way.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So Mick, the Mac. Tell us about the Mac.
I'd like to say the return of the Mac, but you know, we're going to get in
You've got to be
trouble
a certain age to get that reference, I think. But I'm in that boat.
get in trouble off Craig David for that. So Mac is our very, very much. It's our lowest ABV whiskey. It's our entry into the market, and it's to appeal to everybody. No, sorry, Cole. That is the wrong picture of the Mac to show.
Oh. Let's see.
The Mac to show. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen. There's a much better picture of the Mac to show. Hopefully, there you go.
Double Mac.
There's Mac and Mac. So, all right, everybody. There's nothing wrong with a double Mac.
Just to explain, everyone, that the second Mac you can see there belongs, if a cat can belong to anyone. I don't think that they can. To be fair, I think you belong to them. That is Carl's cat or kitten. In the back, Carl being the man that we've got in the background, pulling these strings for the evening. Yeah. But yeah, right. So what goes into it, Mick?
So this is literally on New Mix Spirit put into virgin American oak casks for about 5 years. It's 40% ABV. It is chill filtered. It is color corrected. But guys, that's just for aesthetics. To let it get to the wider audience, yeah, to allow you to do anything you want with it. You know, we did put this, so we marketed this as something to really appear on the back bar. You can see it over my right shoulder that it sticks out a mile. It's got a nice dark colouring, but that is because of the E158 added. But that's not a bad thing, guys. Okay, that is not a bad thing. It just gives you a consistent colour and a consistent flavouring and a consistent appearance with the chill filtration across the market. So whether you be having a dram in the coldest parts of Sweden or the hottest parts of Singapore, it doesn't matter. It will look the same. It will taste the same. And that's the main thing that we're going to go for here, guys, okay? The reason for 40% ABV is so we can keep that price down. Obviously, tax increases with as high as your ABV goes. So if we keep that at 40% ABV, which makes it the minimum ABV to be a whiskey, yeah, and it's great. I love drinking this straight. I really, really do. It's nice. It's easy on the palate. It's got some good flavors on the go. And it's just a really, really good whiskey. But also, Rich, I'm not going to go into the distillery because you've covered that already. So, this was made by the distillery, which Rich touched on with the Brooks.
It's the first. It's the first whiskey that we've got that's been completely created
on the Gravity distillery. But what I will do is I'll elaborate a little bit, maybe on some serving suggestions and maybe a wee cocktail. So there's a slightly higher end food convenience store that has the initials of M and S that do an apple and pear sparkling soda, basically a sparkling apple and pear juice, if you will. It looks smart in the bottle. It's got a wee twisty top to pull the cork out. That with Mac is phenomenal. It's light, it's refreshing, it's tasty. It can replace your vodka lemonades. Do you know what I mean? Your gin and tonics and all that sort of stuff. So guys, don't forget, we can take whiskies into highballs, into cocktails. Please don't think that just because it's a single malt whiskey that it has to be drunk just by itself. In a tweed waistcoat, in a tweed jacket, which I love, by the way, in front of a fire in a wing-back chair. No. Whiskies are very modern drinks these days. There's some fantastic cocktails out there, some fantastic bartenders doing some fantastic cocktails with all manners of whiskey. And this was our foray into that field, really. That's the reason that we added the colouring. Basically, it doesn't affect flavour. It does not affect flavour, contrary to popular belief, guys. E150A caramel colouring does not affect flavour. All it affects, for the minimal amount that gets put in per batch, it does not affect flavour whatsoever. Okay.
What do you get for flavour on this, Mick?
Again, I still get that foam bananas thing coming through. Charles gets wine gums. I like that, Charles.
I've seen. I saw a pear drops mentioned at one point, which the
more fruitiness is coming through because we're using virgin American oak. Yeah, there's been no other liquid in this beforehand. We are using virgin American oak. So if you think back to like sweetnesses of bourbons, essentially. That's probably the easiest way of putting it, guys. When you get that first hit of sweetness from a bourbon, that's a similar sort of sweetness you're going to get to this, but it's been a different mash bill. And we'll cover mash bills. Rich will cover mash bills as we go on. But basically, it's the ingredients of what goes in. Do you know what I mean? Your grains and stuff. Okay? Well, this is 100% malted barley, as opposed to corn and stuff. You know what I mean? All those sort of other good things that go in. Into that sort of stuff. So the sweetness that you're going to get and the fruitiness you're going to get from that. So we get a good fruitiness from our new mixed spirit. We then put that into virgin American oak, which gives a very, very good sweetness, or vanillins. Yeah. And we'll touch on that again as we go through.
If I just, that's probably a good point to jump in, actually, and just highlight a question that I saw from Stuart. Asking, and I'll hand over to you to answer. So, did Mac used to be done in recharred casks? He had a bottle a couple of years ago, which was much darker.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, So,
interesting. So recharred casks, no. All our casks are charred. Yeah, so that means we set fire to the inside of them. Yeah, you know what I mean. We did a Cooper show not that long ago with our Cooper, and the most manliest photo in the whole of whiskey emerged, and it was fantastic. If Cole can bring that up in a minute, that would be great. If you can, go back to that show, or we'll do it in the future show.
Well, Trentec, maybe when we get there.
Yeah. Give him some time to prep. But no. So recharred, no. Was it darker? Do you have a comparison? It's a bit difficult. I'm sorry. I don't want to call you out or anything like that, but it's a bit difficult to say if it was darker or not, because obviously there might have been a touch more caramel colouring involved with the Mac at that particular time. That made it maybe a bit darker. But no, I wouldn't say it was from a recharge, because we don't use recharred casks.
Yeah, we've got there's another question just sort of almost immediately after that from Michael as well, asking about the Brooks whiskey and saying, does Brooks whiskey also have added colouring or being chill filtered? Brooks is no colouring, but cool filtered. So because it's less than 46% which is anything less than that, we need to do it. Perhaps when we get to our 46% whiskies, we'll talk a little bit more in a bit more detail about it. But to answer your question, just for now, no colouring, some cool filtration to the Brooks whiskey, just to stop some of that cloudiness forming. When it's on a shelf in a cold climate, and clarity. People, as much as even seasoned whiskey drinkers and pros, I think we'd be loath to admit it, but all of us are susceptible to that. Our eyes being the first thing that we use to sort of to judge a spirit or a liquid we see it. Anything that isn't, the clarity isn't there, it's not perfectly clear, even if it's brown in colour. If that liquid isn't clear, you think, something wrong with it perhaps, even though that is far from it. And in fact, if you ask me, the cloudier something is, the more properties are still left in there from the whiskey making process. So for me, it's a good thing. But because it's less than 46%, Michael, it's cool filtered, so it's not quite taken down to the lowest temperatures that you would find. The
technical terminology for that cloud is called flocculation.
Oof, there's another big word, quintessentially, and flocculation, Mick. You're smashing them out of the park tonight.
But at least we're explaining what they mean.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think that's it might be a good time to move to dram number 3, just to keep our pace up for everyone at home. I appreciate there's probably a few people that may well have moved through the Mac now, but do let us know how you feel about the pace moving forward tonight.
Before we leave
notes and things as well. Oh, actually, no, you've got a question, I think, Mick.
I do. So this is our first giveaway question, ladies and gentlemen. So prick your ears up, pay attention. Yeah. This is the first prize, which will be for a bar blade. So given we've just had Brooks and the Mac, what cocktail? And I'll take recipes for both, because we've done both. So I'll take recipes for both. So give me your best cocktail recipe that would include Brooks or Mac. Well, do you know what? That would be really cool if it included both.
Well, let's
contrasting.
Let's see. So as Mick said there, cocktail suggestions for people, or even if a very simple thing, a highball, which would just be a couple of ingredients, had a mixer and a whiskey and a garnish, that sort of thing. And Mick and I will be the judge and jury, no executioner, because it's all.
We'll let this go for another dram or two to get your brains working.
Yeah, let's get
caps on.
I think let's give everyone the time it takes in the Svensk Ek, perhaps, because we'll do another question after that, I'd say.
Yeah.
So let us know, and Mick and I will decide who's had the best idea. And we don't know. We haven't got any criteria set for how we're going to judge it. I think we'll just do it on the hoof and see however we feel. Most of our time on here, I think, is spent on the hoof. So on that, we'll move. I see a few coming in now. So if I'll take the Svensk Ek, Mick. You have a little read of those, and we'll review it together. Perhaps at the end, we'll get Carl to pop some and do them there. That might be a good way of doing it. Lest you just sit there laughing and distracting me the whole time. Yeah,
I'll try not to. I can't promise anything, but I'll try not to.
So everyone, so we're on to the Svensk Ek, or if you were to pronounce it as well, as much as I'm going to attempt to do it correctly, the Svensk Ek or Ek. So this is a bit of a jump up in ABV from the previous two. It's 46.1% ABV, which is where the vast majority of the Mackmyra range will sit. So it's just that sort of sweet spot above the level where you need to look at chill filtration and things like that. So this is non-chill filtered, no added colouring. It's completely natural. It comes out of the cask. Gets brought down to 46%, 46.1 even, and away we go. And on the nose, Mick, I know you're the same with me on the nose. The jump up, it becomes immediately.
Oh, it's unreckoned. It's, you know what I mean?
Immediately more robust and.
Without question, without you see a distinct difference. We started with the Brooks, we've gone to the Mac. You nose this before you even take a sip of it. You know it's a different beast. Yeah,
absolutely. You can tell a mile off. So the first two, we mentioned there's some fruits and sort of warm, gentle spices in there, whereas this is sort of you flip that around and you start off with spicy. If you ask me, this has got some spiciness to it, sort of, black pepper, a bit of nutmeg, perhaps. I've heard people mention sort of sawdust and things before. I know it's not spice, but just always an interesting one for me. But there are some fruits to it and things as well. And so Svensk Ek is the recipe for this, the casks that have gone into its makeup. So all of the whiskey has been matured in ex-bourbon casks. And then for the final 18 months of its of that sort of whiskey's journey within the cask, for the final 18 months, 10% is taken out of the bourbon cask, ex-bourbon casks that are sitting there, and transferred into Swedish oak casks. So Svensk Ek means Swedish oak, but it's only 10% of this has been in a Swedish oak cask. One of the reasons for that is Swedish oak is just so powerful in its influence. So when a whiskey is maturing away in a cask, you've got it interacting with that wood. Wood, oak being a watertight but porous material, basically. So you've got whiskey moving in and out of that wood, taking with it some characteristics from the wood, as well as certain characteristics sort of being removed and looking after one another in that way. So Swedish oak is so influential, so powerful. It's got so much sort of so much to give, I think is how I'd probably describe it, that all we need really to get it to this level, to turn it up to this level where it is now, is just 10% in there. So far more robust on the nose, but I'll move into the palate and I'll say skull to everyone.
Skull.
And that's far more sort of mouth coating for me. If anyone's finding a bit too much heat on the finish, after swallowing, try adding a drop or two of water. I think this one for a lot of people might need a drop or two, perhaps, just to take a little bit of that edge away from it. But also, you don't need to. You don't only add water to something just to take away any edge. Adding a drop of water to something can open up certain flavors. It can sort of slightly change and alter the composition of that whiskey in the glass, because you are, if we get down into the geeky stuff, chemistry, you're adding a bit of water to something, you're changing its dynamic and everything as well, and you're allowing the alcohol and the sort of esters, ester particles, we call them molecules and things, to flavor molecules to separate and open up and bring out other flavors as well. I think this one does quite well with it. There's a bit more bitterness to this compared to the first two, whereas perhaps a bit more sweetness to them, you might say. So that bitterness, a lot of that influence will come from the Swedish oak that we've mentioned. One of the main reason for that is European oak in general, compared to American oak and where ex-bourbon casks would come from, far fewer wood sugars and lignins and things in there, almost as much as sort of 10 times fewer than American oak. Different size grain, it allows a bit more interaction and things as well. It's I keep using that word powerful, but it really is. You compare European oak to American oak, it really is. And then you take Swedish oak and you can turn it up, then again, it takes even longer for Swedish oak trees to grow. In America, you might look at, I don't know, Mick, was it 75 to 100 years, perhaps on a slow day or a slow year for that to be got into harvest? About right. Whereas European oak, 150 to 180 years perhaps before something's something's ready to go. So a long time for trees to grow in the European side of oak, the European gene.
Warmer environment.
Say again?
It's that warmer environment.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so colder, obviously things grow a lot more slowly. Anything sort of trying to grow in the Swedish climate is going to take you a little bit longer. There's an interesting backstory actually from or to Swedish oak. So Swedish oak largely grows in sort of southern parts of Sweden. I think people see Scandinavia and you think just pine forests everywhere, but there is and have been for however long, centuries, if not more, oak trees in the south of Sweden. But there wasn't enough in the 1830s. Thought the Swedish king for the future, for generations down the line, for future commerce and empire building. He made a decree and said we're going to plant 200,000 or 300,000 oak trees over the next 10 years or so, and just create forests everywhere. One in particular, where the oak for this whiskey comes from, is from an island called Vissindshire, or thereabouts. If you read it as a British person, you'd be reading Visingo. It's in an island, Lake Vättern, a very large lake to the south of Stockholm. So anyway, so in the 1830s, thousands and thousands and thousands of oak trees were planted, ready to be built into ships. But then 30 years later, so when the oak trees were barely much more than saplings, the first ironclad ships started sailing the seas. I think the French had the first, and then in the American Civil War there was one on either side there that actually started fighting one another. So only 35 years later, all these trees that have been planted were obsolete, at least as far as their original purpose, which perhaps would go. But that means that there's lots more trees left to build into casks for us or to furniture. The oak trees, and Mick, actually, I remember you told me about this, the way they're planted some time ago. I thought was fascinating. Well, I found it fascinating.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to encourage the oak trees when they're planting these newer ones to grow straight and tall, and not have branches coming off. Which you can't make casks really, and lots of knots and things is no good for making casks. So to encourage the trees to grow straight and tall to be better for making ships, in between the rows of oak trees they planted various other trees. And what were they? It was elm and
ash, elm,
yeah,
and 3 or 4 others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But these slightly smaller, slightly faster growing trees in there, to make the oak go straighter, to aim for the sun and fight the sun better.
Yeah, and I think I know Carl showed a picture or two there, but just so if you see Swedish oak trees and the ones that have been planted within the last couple of centuries, you'll see just these very, very tall. They almost wouldn't look like oak trees. If anyone from our shores that are walking through a Swedish oak forest, there you go. So so not many branches on the way up at all. And just very tall. That to me it doesn't look like an oak tree at all, but it is. No. But it is perfect for making ships, or would have been, and has ended up being very good for us making casks. So I hope that's an interesting bit of background into Swedish oak and its history. It's a very important part of our journey. Mick mentioned earlier about being quintessentially Swedish and using Swedish ingredients. When we set out in '99, it wasn't just about using Swedish barley, yeast, water, things, and peat, which we'll touch on at the end with the last dram. It was also they did want to use Swedish oak exclusively, but they found out quite quickly that it's so strong in its influence and has so much to give. It's not very good for long-term maturation. You don't have things in there. You don't want your whiskey to be in there for too long because it will become too woody and not particularly palatable. So we use it sparingly now, but maybe not sparingly, but tactfully, perhaps. We put a lot of consideration into how much we use it and where we use it. But we use it in lots of different recipes for lots of different whiskies to add a bit more texture or a bit of spiciness to something that might be a bit too sweet, and we want to add a bit of spiciness to it. And we'll put a few casks of Swedish oak in there. So I saw you, Mick, having a good look while I was off on one there. Some of the comments coming in.
Yeah.
Anything jumping out at you for cocktail?
I've picked my cocktail.
Cool.
It's very, very simple. It's not diving to great depths of ingenuity or anything, but that's what I enjoy, though.
Okay, all right. Well, let's have Carl. Carl, can you pop up a few, or all of them? Let's see. I think Micky's already found his favourite, but let's have a look at some of the comments that are coming in. And while we're doing that, everyone else who's hasn't got any skin in that particular game, perhaps write a comment. Let us know what you think about this. Are you finding any different notes in this to the previous ones? Do you prefer this to the other two, or do you prefer one of those to this? Let us know. There we go. First Mackmyra, pepper spice. Yeah, pepper definitely spice. Some herbs. Yeah, so I think we hear herbaceous notes quite often with warming as well. Almond sweetness and marzipan. I absolutely agree with that, and that's something we hear quite a lot as well, Rab. Quite a common one that we have people comment in with.
Yeah, and don't forget, guys, you're not wrong. Yes, Rich, it is more great than the Mac.
Yeah.
Because it's a massive jump in ABV. Guys, do you know what I mean? We're going from like Mac at 40 and Brooks at 41.4 all the way up to 46.1. Now, you're thinking that's just over 4, just over 6. That's not a lot. No, but see, in ABV, that is a lot.
It's a fair old jump.
Yeah, in ABV, that is a massive, massive jump, guys, But you'll see 46.1 is pretty much our sweet spot, really, when it comes to our whiskies. Whether that there's 2 out of the 4 core ranges that are 46.1.
Marrakesh, very nice.
Those are 46.1, and the majority of our moments. The majority of our
the moments go down a little bit.
Are above.
Yeah.
But that's just because of cask choices, really.
So right. Cocktail time is who's going to win here. So Hamish, Fairy Tale in New York, old fashioned but homemade Christmas spice simple syrup, very good. Homemade syrup as well. I've never been able to pull that off. Brooke, perhaps a cinnamon maple whiskey sour. That sounds right to me as well. Mac and cloudy apple juice. Oh, I'm a cloudy apple juice man all day long. I'll say
that's my choice for the winner.
Is that your one? Okay. Well, I think I had they've all sounded good to me so far, but you know more than me about cocktails. I just like with tasting notes. I know what I like.
So tell you what, right? I've chosen mine. Well, don't you choose one, and we'll send each of our winners a bar blade as opposed to just the one. Yeah.
Okay. That's right. Oh, interesting. That's a colourful, that one there. So let me see. Can we have the first couple up again, please, Carl? Just because there was one in there. I can't save me sort of scrolling back through the comments. Okay. Yeah. And what was the one after that? Yeah. Oh, both of those sound all right to me. I'm thinking. I'm impressed with anyone that is able to make homemade syrup. So I think just for that alone, because I'd drink any of those, to be fair. So if I've got to pick one thing to decide between, it would be the first one that we had come up there. I think that was Hamish.
If there's a homemade syrup involved.
Yeah, cool. So Hamish for me. And what was yours, Mick?
So to claim your prize, for Richard's winner. You need to tell us the ingredients for the syrup, by the way.
Cool. Well, to claim Hamish and what was the name of your one, Mick? Before we move on, the cloudy apple one. If we picked you guys, send us write in the comments, and we'll get in touch with you, or send us an email. What would the best one to be? info@mackmyra.co.uk. Is that perhaps Carl in the background could pop up on the screen an email?
Send Carl an email. Carl will flush up his email address, guys. Email him and he will get it all sorted out for you. So you are the 2 winners of the bar blades. Well done, guys, by the way. Well done.
Nice. Yeah, well done. And well done, everyone, for taking part, because they actually did really look rather appetizing to me. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be going back to these recipes and making some, quite frankly.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, come back to the comments. Oh, well, I think that's probably time, Mick, to move into dram number 4, if you'd agree. I think Jaktlycka time. What do you think?
Jaktlycka.
Yak, thank you for doing it properly. Thank you rather than my anglicisation of it. Yeah. That's it. So, yeah, over to you.
So, guys, Jaktlycka, this is our 2020 autumn-winter seasonal. Jaktlycka means happy hunting, but not in the way you might initially think. Okay,
yeah, we're not stalking deer necessarily.
Exactly,
Yeah.
we're not hunting elk down. We're not shooting nice and furries in the forest. Okay, guys, we're walking through the forest and we're collecting more than anything else. Yeah, things that are naturally available to us. So this whiskey comes in at 46.1%, and as I said earlier on, this is where our seasonals sit. This is where Angela thinks our magic point is. Yeah. Now she's done loads of experimentation with different ABVs to see where our new make best sits with cask interaction and all that sort of good stuff, and how it tastes on the palate and everything like that. She did a lot of experimentation. But 46.1, so it's above 46, and as Richard alluded to earlier, and I mentioned as well, means we do not need to chill filter this. So this whiskey is non-chill filtered and natural coloured. So seasonals, we release 2 seasonals a year. So we do a spring summer, comes out around about the March April time, and we do a autumn winter, which is about, Rich, is that the August September-ish time?
Yeah, I think closer to, I think, September. Yeah, latter part of August, maybe September. Yeah.
So we do 2 seasons a year, guys. Last year we did Grand Thé as our autumn. As our spring summer. Apologies. Our spring summer was the Grand Thé, the green tea, and the autumn winter was this that we're tasting now, the Jaktlycka. So this is our brand newest seasonal. It's amazing. It genuinely is amazing. It reminds me of Halloween. This is my Halloween dram.
You say that, yeah. You said that since the start of that, yeah.
Exactly. Now, I don't mean it's scary because it's not. Right? I don't mean that. But what I mean is, you think about the end of November or the beginning of November, end of October, beginning of November, and you're thinking, or you're hearing people setting off fireworks, and the coldness is coming in, and you get waking up in a misty morning, that type of thing. Yeah, it reminds me of that sort of time of year. If I was allowed to be out the rugby this year, this would be my hit flask for the rugby, because before that, I used to mix up different single malts, plain master blender myself, essentially, really, into my hip flask to take a nice, not overly peated, but maybe not very light whiskey to rugby with me that I could have a sip on and share with people around me. Obviously,
back in the day, yeah.
No idea when I'm going to go back to be able to do that, Rich, for a start. Even if we're allowed back to the rugby, when can I share my hip flask again? Do you know what I mean?
If someone brings a little travel glass along with them, perhaps that's something you can.
There you go. So I might have to have one of those in my inside pocket as well. So that's all good. But still, this is the sort of flavour profile and mouthfeel that I'd go for that like late autumn, not quite winter sort of effect, Rich. Do you know what I mean?
It's warming to me. It's warming. So the seasonals, when they come out, they're supposed to, they do, but they're designed to elicit the sort of the feelings that you get around that sort of season, perhaps, or have something to do with something around that time of year when they are released. So I think this one, that our seasonal will be out, the autumn winter one at the end of this year, will be closer, more closely aligned to the winter season, whereas this is firmly in that autumn.
Firmly in that autumn, isn't it?
Autumnal feeling, that and sort of elicit the feeling about the outdoors and walking through a Swedish forest, and all the notes, the smells, and not the taste. You're out there, picking things up and nibbling. Well, if you know what you're doing, if you're Bear Grylls, I suppose you can do that, of course. But to give you that
as well.
to give you that Swedish forest vibe. So the influences of this, Mick, what's the key sort of influential casks?
Yeah, so the cask makeup that went into this is pretty good. I'll be honest. Obviously, I'm going to say that, aren't I? Do you know what I mean? But we've saturated American oak casks, Swedish oak casks, and ex-bourbon casks that were about 30 to 100 liters in size, and we saturated them with a Swedish wine called Jakt. From our partner in this, Grafan. So they're a natural Swedish winemaker. So what we did was we took the Jakt wine, and like I said, we seasoned American oak, Swedish oak, and ex-bourbon casks in this wine.
Yeah.
For I think it was about the 18 months to 2 year mark.
Yeah.
So a really, really good saturation, right? And then what we did with that is we took our Asian whiskey from new and first for American oak casks up to 128 liters, and our new and first for Oloroso casks, 128 to 200 liters. We took that whiskey and we finished it off in those first 3 barrels. Those first 3 type of casks that I mentioned. To get this really deep, fruitful flavour. But what we also did in that, guys, was Rich mentioned smoked tails earlier. Yeah, Rich mentioned smoked tails earlier. And we've used a couple of casks of that in it as well, just to give it that autumnal sense. Not quite winter, but a bit deeper and darker than summer. And this for me, this is rugby whiskey. That's what I say. This is rugby whiskey.
Well, before we go back into the Thunderdome of rugby, watching things again, for anyone watching at home that isn't Swedish and hasn't heard of Jakt wine before, Jakt being the first 4 letters of the Jaktlycka, hunting, it's a hunting wine. What is hunting wine and what goes into it?
So basically, it's a wine that Grafan put together using blueberries and lingonberries together to make a wine. So we all know what blueberries are, but maybe some people are not quite so au fait with lingonberries, and that's fair enough. Fair enough. They can be found in the Swedish forests. They can be literally found together. Yeah? They grow together. You take a big berry picker. It looks like a big cone. Yeah, quite far spaced apart. And you trawl it through some of these bushes, and you'll get blueberries and lingonberries together. But lingonberries, for the more UK-based people, Rich, where's you got it? Cranberries on steroids.
Well, I think I like to say cranberry's cousin, which is
cranberries on steroids before.
Yeah, mine's a bit more watered down perhaps than cranberries and steroids, but jacked up cranberries maybe. So and blueberries and cranberries, you get that. There's a little sourness to both of those berries. There's a little bitterness, but there's also there is a bit of sweetness there too. And I think for me, blueberries have a bit more sweetness than the cranberries. I think the ratios with which they've been put into that wine is 10% blueberries and 90% lingonberries. Sorry, so not cranberries. I mentioned cranberries, but but it's not the other way around, is it?
Yeah, more blueberries than lingonberries.
Okay, well, I stand corrected, Mick. I'll let you have that one. Yeah, one to you. But yeah, just see a comment from there, Richard. So wine seasoning seems to have worked well. A really nice, well-rounded flavour. I'd be inclined to agree. I think that well-rounded thing, that feeling that you get from those flavours, a bit of balance there to it, and a bit of roundness. It's quite hard to explain the roundness side to somebody that doesn't sort of hasn't used that word before a bit. But I use rounded quite often, Rich. So
I'm loving some of these tasting notes that are coming in. And people get on the nose and on the palate as well. Guys, keep them coming in. This is fantastic. And before me and Rich whittle on any more, we do have a wee video that Angela made for the promotion of Jaktlycka.
Have we got that code? Is that happening? I think that...
There's something absolutely magical about the Swedish forest. I love the treasures that I find just stepping out of my office a few meters outside of the distillery. So Grythyttan Wine are a great partner to Mackmyra. We love their natural wines. The taste of this wine that gives the taste to the whiskey is subtle, soft, light fruitiness and fine spice. And it goes really well together with the aromatics of the Swedish whiskey. The Swedish innovative finish together with the Swedish oak, that is a perfect combination.
Yeah, nice little video there. I like the background, quite a calming melodic little number. I have that. Before we move into our second competition, I'll just say there's one thing that the Swedish have in common with the Scots, and that's the freedom to roam, the right to roam. I think much of actually Scandinavia has the same thing. My pronunciation of it is Alan Men Straten, or Alan Men Stratton, if you were to read it in my voice. So that in Sweden for Angela for this, when she was talking to Mick and I when this sort of first came out last year, and the rest of the team, that was quite a big important part. It's an enormous part of their culture, something that everyone takes incredibly seriously and likes, as likes to have that freedom to roam. Very appreciative of it, as I'm sure they would be. So this, getting out in the outdoors, freedom just to go and explore and be happy hunting or hunt some happiness in the forest and things as well. Yes. So I just thought for anyone that drinks Scotch or any Scots that we do have with us this evening, you share that in common with our friends and cousins across the channel over in Scandinavia. I think time maybe, Mick, for the cocktail shaker giveaway.
Yes, definitely.
I think what's should we do maybe what does well? Okay, so we'll say I'll just to warm everyone up. If you all get ready, this one isn't going to be something that we'll judge. This will be a first past the post. So first answer that we see that's correct will win the prize of a cocktail shaker. I think, Mick, should we do something about maybe the definition of something we talked about earlier, or the translation?
That's right, guys. We spoke about it at the beginning of the show. What does Mackmyra translate to?
Go. Yeah. We'll let them come in. We'll see the answer. But then also, anyone else, once you've done that, once you've submitted your answers, let us know what you think of the Jaktlycka. And I saw some people answering or telling us what they thought compared to others. Let us know what you think of it. Yeah, Rab for me, there's the first person I can see, Mick.
Cool.
And about what you can see, I think...
Rab Williamson. Yeah.
There seemed to be, I think everyone's basically got it there, but I did see Rab, at least as far as my feed was showing, it seemed as though Rab was coming in first. I think we'll let Carl in the background determine whether or not Rab was definitely the first, but it's looking good for Rab for me at the moment. Yeah.
For political ease, I agree.
But we'll let Carl. We'll pass that decision off to Carl. Did Rab win one of the bar blades? I can't remember.
He did. So Rab, you're right, mate. Sorry, you won a bar blade.
No, we've got one to go with it. So we'll see what Carl decides in the background. But I think that's it. So can we maybe do what? Well, Rab won that really, but Rab's already got a prize. So
yeah,
should we let Michael, who was second?
Yeah, well? I agree.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking because well done to Rab, but Rab, and if he ends up with a hip flask at the end, then one person taking all the prizes home. Yeah, we'll see. Let's just say that Mick and we'll deal with we'll deal with everyone internally afterwards. Let's just say that's it. So for me, I'm saying Rab and Michael look like the first and second to me. So well done, Rab and Michael. There we go. And well done for everyone else actually getting it right. Thank you so much for listening and absorbing what we said at the beginning. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
and,
that's very well done, by the way.
And hopefully you guys will be in with a good shot at the hip flask at the end as well.
There's a comment by Hamish Colville.
Okay.
If you can flash that up, please, Carl. Hamish says, no, before that, guys, are they your personal collections of whiskey behind you? If so, I'm very jealous.
Yeah.
Yes, this is my front room. This is some, probably a third of my whiskey collection. There are other shelves that way, which you can't see. And yeah, you're in Rich's personal office there as well.
So this is the spare room, but I've dubbed it the library because of the bookshelves that are in here with me. There are actually some books on a smaller cabinet over here, on a smaller version of the same thing, but then all of the other boxes or squares filled with other bottles as well. But yeah, you're in the library in my 2-bed flat, basically. Yeah, so nothing too grand. Maybe I could get a 3-bed flat or a house if I didn't have quite so much whiskey. But that's a debate for myself and my partner that we have regularly.
I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. I didn't know. I've never, before we move into the last one, I'll just say very quickly to Mick, I all these tastings and shows that we've done together, I didn't know you're in your front room. And but so fair play for you for getting away with having that in there. I think that's it's been a dream of mine just to sit and be able to sit on the sofa and look at that while I watch instead of watching TV. But I've got to come in.
I've literally nowhere else to put it there. So,
but yeah, cool. So yeah, before we move in to the Svenska Rock is how one should pronounce the Swedish, well, the word. It is a Swedish word. Just a quick reminder, everyone, if you've enjoyed any of tonight and you feel like you'd like to see Mick and I talk to some guests that come and join us, Mackmyra Inn, our virtual pub on Fridays at 6 o'clock. It's you and Carl in the background. Everyone can put a face to the person pulling the strings in the background of things tonight on the production end, joined by Jamie from the Glen Turret, the Global Brand Ambassador. And our virtual pub, basically we get on 6 o'clock, you tune in, YouTube, Facebook, wherever it may be. And we will have we've got talking points and things, stuff that we want to messages that will wanted to talk about, stuff that hopefully people would find interesting and be curious about. But yeah, it's a bit more. It's not a tasting like this. It's a bit more of we have a drink together, have a chat, have a laugh. Hopefully, we have a laugh, Mick. Hopefully, people that are joining us can find a bit of humour or levity in there too.
You'd like to think so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Otherwise, but if they don't, well, at least we're having a good time, I suppose. So, Also, Rich with a very generous offer to you there, Mick, saying you can put the overflow at his house. It's very great.
Honestly, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
But a kind man there, Rich. So, a very selfless act, I think. Cool. Right. So, the final dram of the evening, the Svensk Rock, or Svensk Rock. Svensk Rock is what I called it for the year or two that I was drinking Mackmyra before joining the firm. Svensk Rock, because I was quickly corrected into saying, which translates into
in December by Moa.
Yes, yeah. Well, Moa, Swedish whiskey girl, AKA Swedish whiskey girl on her social media channels and YouTube channels. A Swedish native, been living in Edinburgh for 4 or 5 years. Loves her whiskies. Got a very popular channel and a blog that does reviews and things of all sorts of different whiskey. She came on a few weeks ago to join us on a special show that Mick and I did, where we went through our range of whiskies, and she helped us learn how to pronounce them properly, which we found invaluable, I dare say.
It was such a hilarious show, Rich.
Actually, I think that was, I said,
really.
We have a laugh on the in, we're having a laugh, but I know that everyone was laughing watching us try and pronounce everything. Yeah, I hope it was
questionable, doubt.
Yeah,
so guys, you can get our back catalogue on our YouTube page and on our Facebook page as well. Yeah,
that's it. I think I know that people were laughing because people still message me from time to time and tell me how much they were laughing, often at us rather than with. But yeah, cool. Right. So the Spence Rook, 46.1% ABV again. So this, I think I've seen some comments come in here already. I think it's quite obvious. This is our smoky dram, basically. So for me, smoky, herbaceous, that sort of green plants to it, and sort of like leafy notes coming in there. That's what I mean quite often when I use the term herbaceous. I know that somebody earlier mentioned sort of getting some herbs in. I think it might be in the Spence Ek, and I see herbaceous notes you can find throughout some of our whiskies. This is definitely one for me. Now, there's smoke to it, but I think I mentioned earlier, both of us have always conscious of the fact that we may have people that have joined us that aren't very far down their whiskey journey, perhaps. And haven't had much smoky whiskey before, or think that a smoky whiskey will always have that sort of medicinal iodine, sort of TCP property to it, and that can put some people off, and it can put people off that have been drinking whiskey for years as well. It really is, it's really much very much down to everyone's own personal taste. But for this and our smoky whiskies, the two that we have, you buy by the bottle at the moment. It's more smoke than what people would associate, I think, ordinarily, Mick, with peat being sort of medicinal side. I think that's fair to say. Yeah. So it's I'll get like a sweet, almost like bubblegum sort of flavour behind it as well, sort of like cherry or something. This. Yeah, well, I'm going to go into the palate because this is the dram I look forward to the whole time we do these tastings together. So I'll say cheers or skål to everyone. And, yeah.
There's only one more dram that I really enjoy more than this one, and it's just a twist on this one, in all fairness, and that's the Svensk Amerikansk Ek.
Yeah. So the Svensk Amerikansk Ek that Mitch just mentioned came out as a limited edition of ours, and just was so popular. It's become basically part of our core range. It's going to be out year after year from now on. Now,
I think, Rich.
Sorry again.
I think it's more in the seasonals.
No, it's going to be here. It's here to stay. It's here to stay.
Yeah, it's here to stay, but it won't be in the core range.
Well, it's somewhere between the two because it's not quite one. It's not quite either of them. So it's going to be a regular staple of our offering, basically. So what we saw there, I don't know if Carl, actually you can pop up the picture again. It's quite not a bad one to have on there. So we actually do something quite interesting with our peating process. In fact, actually, is that in the background, Mick? You can see. So you can see behind Mick, underneath him, you can see a hand, and then sort of above him and to underneath him to the left, you can see sort of some greenery there being held. And here's a close-up shot of it. So Mick said at the beginning in our quick or brief intro into Mackmyra and our history that we set out to be quintessentially Swedish, and to us that meant using Swedish ingredients, but also employing sort of Swedish other things into techniques perhaps into our process. Now what you see there are some juniper twigs, juniper branches, not the berries. Nothing to do with gin, nothing there, but juniper branches. In Sweden and in much of Scandinavia for thousands of years, there's been not just a tradition, but almost just an important way or part of life to flavor when drying food or curing food, fish or meat, whatever it is, for the hard, long very harsh winter seasons or winter months. To put a bit of extra flavour into that, they would throw on juniper branches, juniper berries sort of growing in abundance in that part of the world, juniper branches into the fire, into the flames, to try and infuse some of that flavour in there. So when we started making our own whiskey and wanted to use ingredients and techniques of our own, we experimented with a few other ingredients you can get in Sweden to put into the smoking process, into the peating process. Mick, would you care to explain perhaps what the peating process is in a sort of concise or succinct way?
Of course.
What is the peating process and why do people do it?
So peat basically was an old-fashioned fuel source. Yeah. Before we had coal and gas and all that sort of good stuff, people used to dig up stuff from the ground, dry it out, and burn it as a fuel source, and that happened all over the world. So, people assume that peatiness is associated with Scotch, but it's not. It's really, really not. So just jump across the water a wee bit to Scandinavia and to Sweden. We've got the Karamossen or the Karenbog. I don't know who that was named after. A bog full of Karens decomposing is pretty much cool. But, we don't quite know. But no, that's obviously a joke on
moving on.
Karen.
Moving on.
So everything we use is local, like Rich said. So we get the peat from the Karenbog, get it dried out on the fire. So that's like less than 50 kilometers from the distillery. Yeah. And then the juniper twigs that we put across the top is cut down by the local electrical company. So when they're going about and doing their maintenance, they cut juniper back from growing. They give us the juniper bushes that they cut back. We use the twigs on our peat fire and the juniper berries for our gin. So, it's great. So we're into smoky whiskey. So we're one of only 10, less than 10 distilleries. Yeah, thereabouts in the world that actually floor malt and smoke our own barley. So we take a green barley, we lay it out, we smoke it, we heat it, we make it malted barley, smoked malted barley, and then we take, there's Hakan, that's the man that's in charge of our smoker, as you can see right there. But we don't do 100% smoked barley distillation. What we do, for our batch, we take about 150 kilograms, 1,500 kilograms of barley. When we do a smoked run, 1,500 kilograms, 350 kilograms of that 1,500 is our 60 ppm smoked barley. Goes into that. So we don't come out with a 60 ppm whiskey, obviously, as we know. So 60 ppm to some of the peat geeks amongst us. Maybe not everybody's a peat geek. So ppm means parts per million, or phenols parts per million. Okay. So the smokiness that is involved in it. So just to give you an idea, Lagavulin, Lefroy, they go about what, Rich? 45 to 50?
There or thereabouts, yeah. I think the mid-40s, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a different kind of peat. Where theirs is more seaweedy, coastal, you get a medicinal flavour, whereas the Mackmyra peat in the Karamossen it's not that coastal.
No,
it's a bit more flowery.
Yeah, it's not coastal, but a few thousand years ago, it was under the Baltic Ocean. So there's there's some saltiness to it, and because peat, and if anyone doesn't know what peat is, we keep talking about peat. It's basically extremely immature coal. It's the sort of the very close to the surface, or the ground level. It's decomposing or decaying biomatter, plants and things that have got, plants and moss in particular, that sort of thing that goes into it. And in Sweden, the peat that we use compared to Scottish peat is far less dense. We use the top layer of it, so we don't go quite far down into the ground, which is better for the environment. It's less carbon and things being released. It gives it. Yeah, it gives it more sort of smoke than some of those medicinal things properties you can get sort of a bit further down. But also, interestingly, and I only found this out actually last week, Mick, and it sounds obvious once you've heard it, of course, but the Ice Age ended in Scotland before it ended in Sweden, so it's less. It's had less time, or more pressure.
Touch more northerly.
Yeah, it sort of changes the dynamic and the properties of it. But anyway, so peating, you put your peat, you put your barley to dry it before it goes into the whiskey making process. To stop it from malting too far, germinating too far. You need to dry it. We put that peat smoke underneath it. We do 36 hours. I think Mick mentioned about the weights and things that we use, but that is a very long time for using peat smoke into your barley. A lot of people do dry heat after that. And then we add on juniper branches into it. Now, to go back into the notes and just to have a look at some of the comments, if Carl can pop some up, and while he does, for me, a friend of mine, anyone can tell me if they think I'm mad or my friend, but I happen to agree with him. What they think of it, but being like a damp, there's a dampness to it, like a peat, a smoke, a bonfire in the rain is what I sort of find with it. Now, so a more friendly peat. That comment there, that's exactly what we're saying. That's the sort of vibe, maybe, or what we hear from people quite often. Yep. And then smoky is who's at the mask. That's sort of just channeling Richard's inner mask there. I think the smoky.
Can we go back to Richard's comment? I disagree with that.
Do you think? I'm not sure I agree with that, but it doesn't mean that he's not right.
I personally don't get the iodine fun. No, I'm not saying that Richard's wrong.
Because he's not. Because it was there. It was there. Yeah.
If that's what he gets, then that's what he gets, and that's cool. But no, that's quite an unusual one for me. And salty. I don't get the saltiness, but I get the smoke.
So Darren, like an island Malt. So I know that there's one or two people here that I've seen in the comments as well that said that this hasn't been their favourite of the evening, and other people have. Start letting us know bit by bit if everyone could. What your favourites were, whether or not you want to put them in order for us, or just tell us what your favourite was, or your least favourite, however it may be. Just let us know what you think. Jack the winner, Jaktlycka for the winner for Rich. Then Spencer Heck. I'm in that ballpark. I think I don't want to tell people what my favourites are until we've seen a few coming in, perhaps. But I lean more into the sort of robust, the big, flavourful, big punchy ones. But then I spend a lot of my time drinking whiskey that's 46% or above, basically. And if anyone's joined us tonight and that's a bit too punchy for them or anything, perhaps you are more inclined to the Brooks whiskey or the Mac. And let us know if that is the case. Mick, we talked about a giveaway, the last giveaway of the evening being the hip flask. What should we do for it? What are you thinking?
What did we do?
Yeah,
I can't remember the question we were going to ask. What
question? I'm sure I'd made a note of it, and then I can't recall it now. Carl, perhaps in the background you can let us know what question, or give us a suggestion perhaps for the hip flask. Oh, I'll tell you what, because we talked about this before, just to give everyone a bit of insight into how the sausage is made. We always have a little bit of a talk and a meeting about what we're going to discuss and things like that going forward. And I think we were going to talk a little bit more about Swedish oak when I was talking about the Svensk Ek.
Oh, yes.
And we were going to talk about, you mentioned David as well and what his role was. So let's say, because you did mention the word there, and this is the big prize, Mick, right? So, and you did mention the word earlier. I heard you say it. So let's roll with it, and let's see who we can have coming in and who.
Cool. So, David, that we mentioned earlier on Svenska, is our whiskey cask maker. He makes our whiskey casks. What is his job title?
Yes, there he is. There's the picture Mick wanted. Yeah. So,
my! There's the picture.
What is the job title, everyone out there, first past the post, of a person who makes casks? What is their job? I think that's
Aaron Johnson.
I've had about 4 come in at the same time to me there. I don't know what we're going to do about that, because I don't know if we've got as many as 4 to give away. I think that was a strong all at once response as far as I could see. Carl, we're gonna pass off to you, I think, with that. And give you the responsibility, because that was all at once. And again, I don't think we've got 4 or 5 that we can do. Who was at the top? Was Rab at the top again? Good God, Rab, you are. He's the closest to the keyboard tonight, I think. Carl, what are we going to do? We're waiting for you to make a decision, because we're passing the responsibility on to you. And Carl will be joining Mick, by the way, guys, this Friday, 6 o'clock at Mackmyra Inn. So if anyone feels aggrieved at all about Carl's decision, turn up and heckle him in the comments.
No, don't do that.
Maybe don't. But we'll give you his direct line. We'll put his phone number out. Here's Carl. Carl, sorry, what was that?
I'm not afraid to come from behind the curtain, all right? So no blaming Carl, all right? Don't pick on Carl. Carl's in control.
Okay, Carl, quite well, man behind the curtain. So yeah.
Let's go with Darren. So I think Michael and Rob have already picked up a price on that. So let's go with Darren.
Okay.
Real quick, everyone at the same time. So well done, guys, for getting in there real quick. But yeah, I'm going to go with Darren Johnson on this one.
Cool. Well done, Darren. Well, thank you very much, Carl. You've thank you for stepping in and doing that. So Mickey and I would have loved to give everyone a hip flask, of course. But Carl,
by people way above our pay grade, guys.
Carl's weighed in and made this decision. So thank you everyone for joining in on that bit. But well done to Darren as a hip flask to you. Well done. Cool. So that's probably time to slowly start wrapping up. Again, if people could, just let us know what your favourites were. Always keen at this point of the evening to find out what people thought. We're really keen to see where the list will be. I'd say for me, it's Svensek for me. But then you could ask me tomorrow what I think, and I might well tell you a different one, because it's all depends what mood you're in, depends the company you're keeping, the food you've had that day, the music that you've got on, whatever it is, it can influence it. So let us know your favourites, and I think while people that might be trickling in, hopefully we'll have a comment or two. But Mick, a little reminder perhaps of what we've got coming up.
Yeah, so a quick rundown, guys. Unfortunately, no more apple blum, which is quite sad for me, because I really quite like that. So if you see a bottle of apple blum in the wild, snap it up. Let me and Rich know. Also, we've got our new seasonal whiskey coming out in March. There's also a single cask bottling, like I mentioned earlier. Not coming from us, from a good friend of ours. So keep your eyes and ears out for a single cask bottling of Mackmyra. And there's not many of those around at all. We've got the pub coming back tomorrow night. Like I said, myself and Carl will be hosting my good friend Jamie Morrison from the Glen Turret. We've got the Valentine's show as well on the 10th.
Yeah.
We've got another pub show the Friday after that with Richard and Spalt. So don't forget, guys, like and subscribe to the channel. Tell all your pals. That would be fun. And yeah, just come get involved. It's a good time. We impart some knowledge. We impart a good time, hopefully. Fridays is where you want it to be, though. Friday, 6 o'clock, the Mackmyra Inn on our Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, I believe, as well. Get involved in that, guys. It's a good hour. It's a good laugh. Come along.
Yeah, perfect. And I think people, any YouTube thing you go on these days, people always say, like and subscribe, but please do it. It really does make a big difference to us, basically. We're all trying to grow in this virtual world. The benefit, you subscribe, you get notifications about things that we've got coming up. We tend to do a lot of giveaways and things as well. Hopefully people had a bit of a laugh during that. We've got loads more tastings lined up, loads more giveaways, regular releases and new upcoming whiskey announcements. And we're really just trying to grow a community, I guess, not necessarily just around us, but just in general. And Micky and I, there's been a comment or two about the drams we've got behind us. We're not just Mackmyra men, we're whiskey people. We've got, it's the more people we have that come and talk to us, the more fun we have ourselves as well. And we do our best to try and get everyone involved as much as we can, and give everyone that feeling of a bit of coming togetherness, perhaps, and a bit of distraction for anyone who may well need it. That's it. So as comments, let's have a quick look at the comments and see what we've got for anyone's favourites. If they have been coming in, I haven't kept up with the comments as they're rolling in. Then Carl, if there are any specific about the favourites there. From Rab, first time with Mackmyra, my favourite whiskey would be Brooks breakfast whiskey. Yeah, which again, we're not telling you to have it at breakfast, but breakfast friendly. Almost equal to a concoction. Oh, cool. Okay, that's cool. Love the Jaktlycka from Brian. A winner for him. Then Rook, Eck, Brooke, and Mac. Very good. Yeah,
well, he's a PT fan.
Yeah, that's right. I've just seen. I know we'll have another comment come up there, but Richard just commented on your Bimber collection, Mick. Someone's rather impressed with that. Kevster, Rook, Jaktlycka, Brooks, Eck, and Mac. That's an interesting order for me. That's really interesting.
No, that probably where it would sit with me as well. In all fairness.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, cool. There's a few people. I know they might not all come up on the comments here, but a few people, Mick, just saying thanks for the evening, and a few people saying about how handsome you are, tucked in there as well. So I might be reading between the lines. And where's the whiskey freezer chat? Micky likes to put the beginning. Yeah, Micky likes to put the Brooks in the freezer for a bit. I would advise just having a go with it. If anyone's got any Brooks left, pop it in the freezer for an hour or so. Bring it out. You'll find less on the nose, but more on the.
And have it for breakfast.
That's perfect. So that's it. So I will say thank you so much to everyone that's taken part. Thank you for for buying the packs and putting your money, investing your money into it, or whoever may have bought it for you as a gift, if that's been the case. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much as well for the level of interaction that we've had. I mentioned a minute ago talking about interaction stuff, but Mick and I, we're very much missing being able to be out talking to people and things. So having people, the level of interaction everyone's given us tonight has been fantastic. And we'd actually, before we even started, there was a few people that started commenting saying hello, ready for the show and stuff. So we knew we were going to be into a good crowd tonight. So thank you very much for everyone. Mackmyra.co.uk. If you check that website out, that's where our web shop is for any bottles that you may want to buy. You'll also be able to find information there about all the things that we have coming up. Again, please check out our YouTube page or our Facebook page and, subscribe to whichever it may be for things that we've got coming up. And I'll say, that's it. Thanks again. I'm sure Mick will say thank you too.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please tune in again. Don't forget, we're back tomorrow night.
That's it. Yeah. So you can see Carl. Carl, if anyone wants to come back and heckle Carl, don't come and heckle him. But if anyone does, Carl will be on screen. Carl will be on screen tomorrow. And I'll say, good night, farewell. Hope to see you all again sometime soon in whatever capacity it may be. But good evening and Skull.